Hello everyone. So this is Shravan Malla. So I'll be taking you through this how to build the language detection model using NLP. Today we'll go through the minimal like the steps required to build our own language detection model using NLP. So let's see what is the outline of this course. How is it looking like? So we'll go through the basics of NLP. So it starts with basics of NLP, like what is NLP and why NLP, and followed by the text pre-processing and vectorization techniques. And we'll also go through the steps. Then we'll follow up with the steps to build the language detection model using NLP. And we'll see each and every step required, right from the data loading, the data pre-processing, and building a model and how we evaluate our model. So coming to the NLP. So what is NLP? So nowadays we are hearing more about this NLP. So almost all the organizations have employed this NLP, the work in NLP with their existing traditional applications, right? So we need to understand the importance of this NLP. So what is this NLP? The natural language processing. So the term itself explains it. The natural language is nothing but the language which we speak, which commonly everyone speaks. And if you see, almost every region, every country, and every state in India have their own language, right? So the language is nothing but it's a barrier for each and every region, and they have come up with their own languages, right? But there is something commonality between all these languages. So what is the commonality here? So we all speak in our own languages, but all the languages have some verb forms, noun forms, tenses, right? And some grammatical things in place. So if we make these things understandable to the model, so we can do some processing out of it, right? So some processing out of it, which might be analysis, based upon which we can come with some insights, or we can even generate the language altogether. So this NLP is nothing but the natural language processing, which is analysis or generation of natural language using machines or computers, right? So without the human intervention, we are asking the model to learn some patterns, derive some patterns with the existing languages, right? And out of which we can help the model to understand some of the patterns out of it and go through some analysis and generation. So what are all the examples which we commonly see for this NLP? So the examples which you are seeing on the screen, these are not limited to the NLP. We have a lot more examples and lot more use cases coming up each and every day, right? So some of those which are most commonly used and most commonly we can see in our real world. Let's discuss among this. So the first one is language detection. So the language detection is nothing but given a text. So let's say you have input one text. So we need to detect which language it is, right? So since we have lot many languages and the model is not able to understand which language it is, right? So for each and every language, there are some own rules. There are some patterns, right? There might be some commonalities in the verb forms and tense forms, but the letters, the characters differ from for each and every language. So we need to first detect the language, and based upon the language it is, we need to make the model understand its patterns, right? And the next use case which we commonly see is machine translation, which is always also called as language translation. So what is this language translation? So I think most of us might have used this, right? So in Google we have this language translate tool where we can translate with multiple languages, hundreds of languages, right? So did Google do this in overnight? No. So this was done almost from last many years, and they were improving the scores day by day. And now the accuracy of the Google Translate is very much better when compared to the initial days when Google Translate was launched, right? So these language translation also be done based upon this NLP. So even if you see the Google Translate .com, like if you can see, first when you input some text, so the automatic language detection is happening. Even if you don't select the language you want to translate or you want to input, based upon the text which we write it on, it will able to detect the language. So there we have the model amalgamation of language detection and language translation happening in tandem. And the most common thing which we see is next word prediction, so which we also called as a language model, right? So this language model can be used as an enhancement to the existing use cases, or it can be altogether a new use case as is. So where do we see this next word prediction? So if you see the our Android phones or iOS phones, right? So when we type something, when we chat something, based upon the first few words, we'll be getting some suggestions what would be the next possible word, right? And also nowadays we can see this in Gmail. So when you're trying to draft an email, so it will suggest you like what would be the possible word which you will be typing in the next word based upon the previous words which you have already typed in, right? So how is this happening? So we are trying to define, or we are trying to derive some of the relationship between the words, right? So these words based upon the relationships and based upon the frequency and how they have appeared in the previous history, so we are able to do some next word prediction. So this is all based upon the probability and statistics, right? So coming to the automated query answering. So the automated query answering, so this is one of the most common use case nowadays which we are which most of the people or most of the industries are working upon. So what is this automated query answering? So let me take this with an example. Let me explain you with an example. So let's say you bought many products maybe in online, or you might have gone to any of the retail store, right? So all the products are tagged with some of the manuals, right? So we need manuals to check how the product works and how to install the product. So even it might be a software product or a hardware product or altogether a different product, right? So every product is associated with a manual, and nowadays we are also getting some of e-manuals, right? So these e-manuals have pages of 200, 100 or 50, which is very large, and no one is interested to go through the whole document, right? So if the model is able to understand this whole document, and as a user, if you pose some question like I have installed so and so part, but I'm not able to understand this particular thing, just if you pose this question, the model will understand your question, and it will go and synthesize the data, the manual data of its own, and it will give you the response in its own structure, which is much more meaningful, right? So this is all in the initial stage, and nowadays we are seeing some more development happening in this automated query answering. And also we can do this wiki table question and answer. So we can load all the data which is available in wiki table, right? We can ask the model to learn patterns out of it, and if you pose some question to the model, it should be able to parse the text, it should be able to see the already loaded text based upon the wiki tables and all, and it should be able to give you one or the other answer which has some meaning in place, right? And the other part is speech parsing. So what is this speech parsing? So we have seen all the examples which we have seen before, right, from the language detection to the automated query answering. So we are inputting some text and we are expecting some output from the model, right? So the text is plain text, or it's a raw text. But coming to the speech, right? So we are talking something. So we are speaking something. So the model should be able to first parse this speech content, and we can go with the sophisticated use cases which we have in the field of speech, like speech recognition or speaker identification. So these all again belong to the NLP. Why? Because we again speak what we write, right? So this is just a different form of inputting the data, but we need, once it is passed, we have many things to solve it. So these are all the most common applications of NLP and most sophisticated applications of NLP. And in addition to this, we also have some other things like customer review analysis, the sentiment score determination and all. But these all things have been very, very common in nowadays. So now we are looking about some of the sophisticated use cases, right, from language detection to speech parsing. Now, so what we are trying to do. So we are trying to do this language detection. We are trying to build this language detection model. So you might be having a question like, why do we need to build this if lot many services are already available for doing this language detection? Right. So you're right. So we have lot many services nowadays. We have this Google language detection available, but these are all paid services. You can't use it freely, and they are all having the copyright issues, right? So you can use it maybe for your educational purpose, or maybe with some certain limit in place, but you can't use it lifelong, and even if you want to use it, you have to pay for it. So if we need to pay for it and you utilize some service which we need to call only via internet or any other API calls, why can't we build our own language model without compromising the data, right? So we can have our own data, we can make our model learn with our data, and we can also achieve the accuracies where the sophisticated state of art models have already achieved. So we can do this with a simple logistic regression model or simple machine learning classification model with some text pre-processing and vectorization techniques in place. So we'll see how to do that. And coming to the next, so what is this NLP based upon? So we have talked about what is NLP and what are all the use cases or examples of NLP. But what is it based upon? So we need to understand what are all the basis of this NLP. How does this NLP work in real time? right? So the primarily the NLP is based upon probability and statistics. So when we discussed about the example of next word prediction, right? So we are trying to predict the probability that what would be the next word based upon the previous words, right? What all the words which are appeared just previously. So let's say if I am typing something in the chat, hi, how are you doing? Right? If I just type hey, how, the next possible words will be how are you, and when I just type are you also, so it will come how are you doing, or if it is where, then it will be where are you going, right? So there are some possibilities, and based upon that the probability calculation and the mathematics involved behind it, there might be some sequence of words which will be suggested for us to use, right? So this is based upon the probability and the statistics behind it. So the machine learning and deep learning, right? So once you have this NLP model, so whatever model you take, whether it's a classification model or whether it's an sentiment detection and all, right? So these all comes into one or the other category of your machine learning, supervised or unsupervised learning, right? And the linguistics. So coming to the linguistics, so what is this what is this linguistic, and how does this help to NLP? So when we are saying about NLP, we are talking about natural language, right? So each and every language will deal with its own social, cultural, historical, and political attributes, right? The factors which influence that language, right? So we should also take this linguistics into consideration while we are building some language based models. And the final thing is common sense. So what the common sense is the most obvious thing. So how does this common sense help us? Let's say you have built some model, and based upon the data, based upon the testing results which were evolved, right? We need to take a decision there, whether we need to improve the model or whether we need to change the parameters, or how do we need to improve the model. We need to take some further actions, right? So these all belongs to the common sense part, which is very essential for any machine learning model. And now, so since right now we have discussed what is NLP and what is NLP based upon and the essentialities of NLP, and now we'll see why NLP, right? So if you have lot many things already in place, so why do we come to NLP, right? So language, as I said you, it is one of the defining characteristics of our species. Each and every species has its own way of communicating, and we have this language as an important communication thing, right? And also in this language we have multiple languages. People in south speak 5 to 6 languages, and people in northern India speak some more languages, and if you go out of India we have lot many languages, right? So these are all some of the defining characteristics of our species, and it helps to resolve ambiguity in the language and adds useful numeric structure to the data. So with this NLP we can resolve the ambiguity in the language, which means that we can derive some patterns out of it, based upon which we can add some more insights, or we can draw some more insights out of it, right? And a large corpus of knowledge can be organized and easily accessed using NLP. So there might be a lot of content which is not in use. Maybe there might be in manuscripts or physical documents and all. And using this NLP, if we just load them into system, which means that if we can make a soft copy of it, there is a lot of things which you can derive from it, right? So this NLP is used in a lot many ways. So the reason this NLP is nowadays a very fascinating term, and people are trying to do some use cases out of it and drew some insights of out of their old data which they have never used before. So what are all the types of use cases in NLP? We have seen some examples of NLP, and each and every example of NLP will belong to one of these types, right? So what the first one is text classification, the language detection, and the sentiment classification. These all comes under this text classification. So given a text, you are classifying whether it's a positive sentiment, whether it is a neutral sentiment, or whether it is a negative sentiment. You are classifying the text with these three different labels. In the same way, given a text, you are classifying whether it's an English language, whether it's an Hindi language, or whether it's any other language, right? So you're doing a classification kind of thing here. The other one is named entity recognition. So what is this named entity recognition? So given a text, you should also be able to do some classification based upon which is a noun in this text, and which is a verb, and which is a pronoun, and which is an article, preposition, and all, right? So why do we need this? In the same way, we also need what are all places and what are all names of a person, right? So these are all most important for us to do some more sophisticated use cases. So this NER, which we call it as named entity recognition, will help us to derive what is a person name, what is a place name, what is a thing name in a given sentence. And the text parsing. So the text parsing is nothing but once given a text, you have to derive some pattern out of it, as I told you in the speech also. So this parsing help us to derive some patterns and do some more use cases out of it. The text synthesis also is the same. So based upon that given text, you have to derive some meaning out of it, right? So the wiki table, the answering the wiki table question, right? You need to first understand what the question is, right? So based upon the question, we should go to the database and hit and get the useful information and make it in a meaningful manner before we showcase it to the user. And the reasoning, so there are a lot of things which come into the reasoning case. So let's say there is a question, there is a text which you input to the model. Okay, maybe you have trained the model in such a way, a boy is going to school and he came back from school and now he goes to play. Okay, so where is boy now? If a question is where is boy now, so based upon the text which we have just discussed, he went to school, he came back from school, and now he went for a play, right? So where is the boy now? The answer for this is boy went for playing, right? So the model should be able to understand this, and based upon this reasoning we can also do this. Okay, so these are all the use cases broadly classified, and almost all the NLP examples which we talked about falls under one of these use cases types. So now what the use case which we are dealing with, the language detection, falls into this classification task. So now that we understood what is NLP, why do we use NLP, and what are all the examples in NLP, and what are all the different types and classifications in NLP, so now we need to understand the next step of it, right? So before we input or before we train any model, we need to do some pre-processing, because the text which is available all across, it's very raw in nature, right? So this text is very raw in nature. So this raw text cannot be fed to the model, right? So why do we say that the raw text cannot be fed to the model? Why? Because the raw text doesn't, the model cannot understand this raw text as is. These should be converted into some of the numerical features, right? So which a model can understand. So before we convert this text to numerical features, we need to remove some of the unnecessary information, which we call it as noise in the data, right? So to do all these things, we have some steps in place. We have some pre-processing steps in place. So we'll discuss the most commonly used pre-processing steps now. Okay, the tokenization. So what do we call it as tokenization? So given a sentence, if you want to tokenize it, we can tokenize it into words. The tokens are called as words here. We are splitting the sentence into words. Let's say we have a sentence saying that he's going to school, and if you tokenize this, we'll get some 5 words: he is going to school. Okay, so these are the tokens which are derived from the sentence. In the same way, if you have a large document and if you want to tokenize in the sentence manner, the large document will be tokenized in the sentences format. Okay, we can tokenize it both in the word or character format or in the sentence format. And the stop words removal. So what are these stop words? The stop words are nothing but the words which are most frequently occurring, and this doesn't really add any information to the model. Okay, so he is going to the school. So here the main importance is given to he going school, right? So is the, these all prepositions and article words, right? So there doesn't add much information for the model. So these words which we normally call them as stop words, so we can remove these stop words. Why? Because these will add up more number of features which doesn't even make any difference to the model. And lowercase conversion. So what is the necessity of converting each and every character into lowercase? So here the necessity is like, so let's say you have a word, maybe a name of a city, right? So the name of a city, maybe Hyderabad. If you take Hyderabad, the same Hyderabad can be written in different formats. You can write all of them in lowercase. You can write all of them in uppercase, maybe H as a capital and remaining all are in lowercase, right? And if you input this to model might interpret these three as a different 3 words, but it's not the case. They're all same words, right? So to make this, to avoid this confusion, we normally convert everything, all the characters or all the letters or all the sentences into one particular case, and we follow this lowercase conversion. And removing numerics and digits. And if you want to do text classification, and there might be a chance that your raw data might have numbers included in it, right? So there is no need of including your including or keeping these numbers, which may add up to lead to lot many features. So we can remove these numerical characters or numerical digits, which doesn't make any sense for our use case. And removing punctuations and special characters. The punctuations and special characters also the same. So these doesn't really add some information. Maybe if you want to take the plural case into consideration, if your use case demands it, we may need to retain some of these punctuation marks, but if not, we can remove them. So removing characters for foreign languages. Yeah, so if you're dealing with some of the foreign languages like Chinese and Japanese, in which you want your model to understand the pattern of their language characters, but not the alphabets A, B, C, D and all. right? So in this case, you can also remove the characters. So this is only for the foreign languages. And the normalization. So what does this normalization mean? So normalization means, like, so what I said you, like if you have a same word, the USA, right? So United States of America. So this can be written in different ways. It can be U.S.A, U.S, US, or normal US, which we call, and United States of America, right? So there are different ways of doing this, right? Writing this, but we need to normalize them. So all these kind of things should be converted to one specific format, so that model will not interpret these as different words, but it understands that all are same here. Okay, so this is normalization. And coming to the stemming and lemmatization, which are most essential. So here we are cutting the words. Okay, we are either bringing the word to its original format, the root word, or we are cutting the ing forms or it forms. Okay, he's going, okay, he went. Okay, this can be the words. The going can be converted to go, the base form, by cutting the ing form. And at the same time, there might be some root words. Okay, there are, if you see any word in a dictionary, you can see that where this word has been origin, right? So in this way, we can use this stemming and lemmatization to reduce the features by either cutting the ing forms or ed forms, or by going to the root word of it. Okay. Yes. So here, what are all the pre-processing techniques which we use in our use case? Let's talk about that. So we normally deal with lowercase conversion in our language detection model, and we also remove the numerics and digits because they doesn't add any value for detecting if a text is an English or a Chinese or a Japanese or any other language. And we'll also try to remove the punctuations and special characters in our use case, followed by we'll remove characters that is only for foreign languages. Okay. So we'll see how to do that in a while. And before we go further, so we have now talked about the pre-processing, the text pre-processing. Let's talk about vectorization. So if you just recall what we have discussed, we said that there is a need for converting the text to features, right? Some numerical form, which a model can understand. Model cannot understand a raw text, right? So we need to convert into some vectors form, maybe one zeros, one something, some vector representation which a model can interpret about. So there are many ways of converting this. So most commonly we use this bag of words, the TF-IDF, and word to way of vectorization. So what is this talking about? So this bag of words is nothing but it converts text into set of vectors containing the count of word occurrences in the document. So given a sentence, so let's say you have a sentence, Raj has bought apples from supermarket. Okay, so this is one sentence. Okay, this is a text form, right? And there is one more sentence, Raj has come to home little late today. Okay, so these are all the sentences. Let's say your document is containing sentences about Raj. Okay, how did he spend his time today? Okay, maybe you have everything about Raj. Okay, so now this can be converted into feature form, right? So how can we do this? So we can do this. Maybe let's say Raj is going to market, right? And there is one more sentence, Raj came to home little late. So how does this bag of words work? It will initially see what are all the unique words in this entire document. There might be some more sentences in this document, but let's take these two sentences right now, okay, for ease of explanation. Okay, so Raj has occurred twice, but it will be only one time. Okay, so Raj will be one feature, and is one feature. So Raj comma is comma came, and two has occurred twice. Maybe we can ignore two, we can make it only one. Going, home, market, right? Little, late. So this is how the features are. Okay, these are all the features which are extracted from this text or the document where we have sequence of sentences. Now if you want to convert this first sentence into vector form, so these features should be taken into consideration. So the vector form will be, in the first sentence we have Raj, so Raj appeared in this, right? So it will be one. And the second one is is appearing in this sentence? Yes, so it will be one. The second word will be one. Came is not here, so the came will be zero here. And two has appeared, right? So it will be one. And going has appeared, it will be one. And home, it's not there in this sentence, it's zero. And market, it's there, it's one. And home, it's not there here, so it's zero. Okay, so the first sentence, the vector representation of this first sentence using this bag of words will be something like this. It's a unigram representation. Okay, the second sentence will also be same. So Raj has appeared 1, and is there. No, it's not there, so it's 0. So came is there, it's 1, and 2, it's 1. So on. Okay, so this is how you'll represent your text, so which is a raw text, right? So this is just text which is group of words. So now we have represented this text in a numerical format, which is a vectorized representation. So what is lagging in this bag of words? So if you see the bag of words, we are just representing the counts, okay, based upon the counts of the word occurrences in the document, if the word has occurred or not, right? But what is the importance of the word? We are giving equal importance to this word which is appearing in all the documents, like these prepositions or the stop words, along with the main important words like going to market, home, late, and the name of the person, right? So every word is being given an equal importance, but that should not be the case, right? So model should be able to understand the importance of the words which add some value to that sentence, right? So this is not happening in this bag of words way of vectorizing. So we have the next method. What is it? We have this TF-IDF. So in this TF-IDF, what we do, we create the vectors from the text which contains information on more than one important words, and also less important ones as well. So we are giving some additional information to the model. So the model will be understanding what is an important word and what is not. So how do we do this? So if you see the TF-IDF, the first one is term frequency. The TF is nothing but term frequency, and the IDF is nothing but inverse document frequency. So we are just multiplying TF and IDF. So if you see the formula of TF and IDF, so the TF is nothing but, the term frequency is nothing but, so let's say you have a document, okay? You have the document, we represent the document with the letter D and term with letter T, okay? And the corpus of documents with a capital letter D, okay? The term frequency will be nothing but frequency of term T in a document D, okay, by sum of all the terms which has appeared in the document, okay? The frequency of all the other terms which has appeared in the document. We are doing this normalization. It's nothing but frequency of the required word, okay, required term, which for which we want to calculate the term frequency, right? So divided by sum of all the frequencies of remaining words, okay? So this is your term frequency. And what will be your IDF? So IDF is nothing but, let me use this space, IDF. IDF is nothing but total number of documents which you have, which is capital D, right? So you have some group of documents in your corpus. Let's say that D represents the number of documents in your corpus, divided by 1 plus the D belonging to the document, which is the document which you want to consider, given that the term is occurring in the document. Okay, so which means that number of documents, total number of documents in the numerator, divided by number of times that term has appeared in all the documents. Okay, so in this way, what happens if, let's say, the number of documents is 1000, okay, and if a term like is or to, which is occurring in almost all the documents, the denominator will also be 1000, which means that 1000 by 1000 will be 1, and log, this is of log of this, so log of 1 will be 0. And when you multiply this term frequency into inverse document frequency, the term frequency might be coming up with some number. When multiplied with this inverse document frequency, which is 0, the TF-IDF will be 0, which means that you are penalizing the word which is not really important, which has appeared in almost all the documents in your corpus, right? So this is one way of penalizing it, and so that the model will understand that whether it is an important word or a less important word or a most important word based upon this TF-IDF score, which is a multiplication of term frequency and inverse document frequency. Clear? And coming to this word vec. So what is this word vec? So word to vec is something which creates vectors that are numerical representations of word features. Okay. So word to vec creates vectors that are numerical representations of word features. So features such as context of individual words. The purpose of usefulness of word to vec is to group the vectors of similar words together in vector space. So let's understand what is word to vec. Okay, so right now we have seen this bag of words and TF-IDF, right? So how does these differ from word to vec? So this word to vec have some additional thing in place. Okay, not only it converts a word or a text to vectorized form, it also groups the vectors of similar words. Let's say like men, women, Okay, king and queen, right? So there is some relation out of these words. So this is some neural network architecture, okay, behind it. So which will add some more value to the words, which will add some more meaning to the words by doing some cosine similarity calculation, which is that the most similar words will be having a closure value. Okay, so these vectors of similar words will be represented together in a vector space. Okay, so this is some additional thing which is being done in this word2vec, and it's mostly used in neural nets, or where we need our model to understand the essence with the data, within the data. Okay, it should understand that, okay, boy or men or these all belong to a same category, whereas girl, woman and all, they all belong to a same category, right? So this is some advanced way of representing your text into a vectorized form. So for IDF, the log of number of documents by number of sentences containing that particular document, we do a 1 plus in the denominator. Why? Because to avoid the zero value. The term is not containing in any document. To avoid the denominator having zero, we do that log of 1 plus thing. Okay, so both the formulas works, but to avoid this zero division, we normally have a 1 plus in the denominator. So these are all the vectorization techniques which we use. And what is the vectorization technique which we use in our use case? So in our use case, we'll go with TF-IDF, and we'll see what are all the additional things which are available in TF-IDF, the n-gram range and the analyzer, right? So which helps us in better manner to make the model understand the information about the data which we feed in. Okay. And coming to the building of language detection models. So now that we have gone through some of the basics, like what are all the basics of language NLP, what are all required, the text pre-processing, the vectorization steps and all. So now we'll quickly go through how we can build our own language detection model. Okay. So the very first step is to import libraries, and you can see on screen we have imported all the essential libraries like string, codex, numpy, pandas, seaborn, matplotlib, which is for visualization, and seaborn is also for visualization. And we have also imported in addition to this some of the packages or libraries from sklearn, the scikit-learn, right? So the scikit-learn is a very user-friendly library where we have almost all the packages available, and we have seen we have imported feature extraction, the linear model, pipeline, and train test split, and metrics also, right? So these are all some of the things which we have imported, right? So we'll see how we have used this in further slides. So here, so after importing the libraries, the next essential task is to load the data, right? So where did I get this data? So this data is something which is readily available in Google. You can just go to Google and say multilingual data for language detection or language translation, where you will get parallel corpus from news data or from European Parliament conversations, right? So you'll be having lot many languages, but here the text files which I have prepared, it's an amalgamation of lot many data resources. So I have prepared this data taking 20 to 25,000 for each and every language, and I'm just showing you the head of the record. So this is the English data, the English language data, and you can see there are some unnecessary information. We don't need this 0.00 percentage symbols, which is a special character, right? We also have some numerical numbers in place, right? And some special characters again. So we'll see how to pre-process this. Okay, here we have just used pandas read CSV function to load the data, and we know the format is, it is UTF-8, right? And header, we don't have a header. Here we don't have a header, we are adding up a header here. So we can just use this. So a simple load function here, the pandas load function, and we can see how the data has been loaded. And the same thing we have done for the German data. So the data which we prepared for German, we have loaded, and also we can see some of the unnecessary information here, the 954, the timings and the dates, right? So these are some of the numerical formats which really doesn't help us to derive if it is an English or a German or a French, right? So numbers doesn't make sense. So only thing which makes sense is the words and characters in it. So there is a question from Deepthi, like please explain practically. Yes, we are going through each and every slide where we have done the practical thing, but putting this in Python and all may not be possible at this point of time. So, but we have taken all the slides. We can you can just try it in your own also, maybe post explanation of the same. Is n-grams used here? Yes, definitely we use n-grams here. Just wait a while, we'll go to that particular slide where we have used n-grams while converting the text into features. Okay, So the next slide is also for the French raw data. We have taken the French data, and you can see a lot many special characters, right? So which may not be really a French language. So we'll see whether these will be removed in the pre-processing steps or not. And also Spanish. So we have 5 languages. One is English, the German, French, and Spanish, and the last one is Chinese. So if you see that there is some commonality between Spanish, French, German, and English, right? So what is the commonality here? We use some of the alphabets which are common in English, German, Spanish. We see that there might be these words, these letters are almost there in almost 4 languages. But this Chinese is something different to it. It has its own language, right? So it doesn't deal with alphabets A, B, C, D and all, right? And though the Chinese language also have some numerics in place, we'll see how to remove them. Okay, so this is about loading the data. So now we have seen how to load this data, and the next thing will be like the data pre-processing. So you saw there are lot many special characters in the data and lot many numbers in the data. So now there is a need for removing this, right? So we'll do a simple method. We have defined a simple method, where step-by-step method. Maybe we can do this in a simple inline also, but we have defined a step-by-step method for better understanding, and we'll see what each and every pre-processing step will do. So initially I have created this translate table where we'll be having all these punctuation marks which we don't really need in our data. Okay, if we have this in our data, we are asking the model, we should ask the code to remove it. Okay, so we have built that in this code. We'll talk about it. So for your understanding, I have just printed this, what are all the punctuations which we doesn't need in our data for our use case. Okay, and now, so I have just iterated for each and every row for all the 5 data frames which we created. Okay, the first one is converting line to lower. So if you see this, let me go through each and every line. Yeah, so the very first line, if you see, this is converting the line to lower, which means that it will be converting all the text into lowercase. Okay, the second line is it will remove all the digits or numerics which are in place. The plus sign indicates that if you have more number of digits, okay, not only one digit, but maybe maybe 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. And the next one is translate table. So what are all the characters which you see here? These will be removed from your text. Okay, and then you are appending, you are just define this lists. Okay, data underscore eng and lang underscore eng, we are just appending the pre-processed line into this empty list, so that these will be containing the pre-processed text. Okay, and we have done the same for German language. There is no difference in the pre-processing steps for German language. Also for French and Spanish, you can see the steps are almost same, but we will see some additional code line for Chinese. So what is it? We are, along with the existing lowercase conversion or removing digits and removing the punctuations in the translate table, we are also doing some additional thing where we are also removing the alphabets. Okay, English alphabets, because English alphabets in Chinese text will not really make any sense, right? So I have just added some more regex expression to remove the English alphabets from this Chinese text. So this is a code line for it. Maybe let me highlight it for you. So this is a code line for that. Okay, where we are removing the English text from the data. Okay, so having done this, so now we need to see how our data has been transformed. So we have seen how the raw data is looking like. Now we need to see after pre-processing if the data is now clean, or is it good to go, or we need to do some more pre-processing. So let's go with that. Let's see that how the data has been transformed. So if you see this, the data has been transformed. So we had zeros and all before, the percentage symbol. Now all those things are removed, right? So you can just see the comparison. The left is the raw data before, and the right side you can see the after pre-processing. Okay, the same thing you can see in this German also, right? So the German file is also the same, where you have dates and timing information available here, which is removed here. Okay, and let's see for other languages also. French, yeah, for this French we have this. For French also we have this special characters. Maybe they are part of French sentence, but if you can see, we have removed this apostrophe and we have converted everything to lowercase, right? It's looking somewhat cleaner now. And Spanish, the pre-processing happened, and Chinese also we can see a significant change in the pre-processing. So I've just shown you 2 or 3 records to understand how the pre-processing has worked. Okay, yes, you have a library to do this word embeddings, and also we have some additional pre-trained embeddings available like Glow embeddings, which is developed by Google, which is already trained for you. You can just import it and use it. Okay, so now we are not talking about wordvec. Why? Because in our use case we don't need such complicated vectorization techniques, so we'll go with the TF-IDF. There are a lot many readily available libraries for this word2vec. Okay, so now, so coming back here, so since we have done the loading part of libraries, loading part of data, and we have seen the basic pre-processing steps, the next step would be how do you split the data to train and test. This is very essential, right? So if you want to train any model, you should have a separate train and testing data. So we did not do any complexity here. We could just use the train test split library which is available in sklearn, right? So we have split the data into 80 and 20, which is 80% of the data goes to train, and whereas 20% of the data goes to test. And what is the random state here? I have used some random value here. So this is just to ensure that each and every time when you do this or when you run this code, the same part goes to train and test, but not getting shuffled. Okay, you can see the shapes of the train, test, and for both X and Y, both for labels and features, right? So almost 1,19,000 has gone to train and 29,000 has gone to test. Okay, so next we'll see how to do this vectorization. So whether we have used n-grams and prefer to use TF-IDF here because it is working really better. So if something is working better with a simpler way, we need not go to the complex forms, right? So we have chosen TF-IDF here. But coming to n-grams, so where we have used this n-grams? And if you see here, let me explain you. So if you see here, you can see the additional parameter in this TF-IDFs where this is n-gram range. So what is this talking about? So let's say you have a sentence, hello, I'm learning NLP, right? So when you, let me explain you in a very vague form so that you can relate to this. So if I want to split this, okay, if you want to tokenize this sentence, I can tokenize using 1 grams, okay? Where is hello will be one feature, I will be one feature, am will be one feature, learning will be one feature, and NLP will be one feature, right? So I can do this in this way, right? And also if I want my model to understand the relation between these two, okay, only if I and am has appeared together, then it is a sentence in English. Okay, when am and learning has appeared together, okay, it's more obvious that it would be an English sentence. Okay, why? Because this I might be an letter which is common in Spanish, German, or any other European languages, right? So if to avoid that confusion, to make the model more clear about this, we can use n-grams, not only of 1 gram unigram, we can do it bigram. So how does the bigram look like? Maybe let me erase this part only. Okay, the bigram of the same thing will be looking like hello, I. Okay, I am learning, and the last feature will be learning and NLP. Okay, if I want both unigrams and bigrams, then what should I do? I should have this earlier features as is, which is hello, I am learning NLP, along with this bigram features where the combination of two words which have appeared in conjunction, right? And now, so there might be a case where even using two words, which is n-gram with the range of 2, might not also be helping me to give some useful classification, or the model might not be able to do classification. Why? Because there might be some combination of words which is common in most of the languages. So to avoid this, we can go till 3 grams, which is trigrams. So with some of the testing and with some of the hyperparameter tuning, I found that n-gram range of 1,3 is really working better. Okay, so now how does our data looking like? So we'll be having trigrams, which means that 1 to 3 we will have unigrams, we'll have bigrams, and also we'll have trigrams. Okay, if you want to have only unigrams, then it should be 1 comma 1, and if you want to have only bigrams, it should be 2 comma 2, and if you want to have only trigrams, it should be 3 comma 3, and if you want all three as features in your data set, it should be 1 comma 3. Okay, so this is how it differs. So since we have used 1 comma 3, which means that we are using unigrams, we are using bigrams, and also we are using trigrams of the text as features. Okay, what is this analyzer? This analyzer, whether it's a character or a word, okay, we are not going word by word. Okay, we are going character by character, which means that hello, I am here. If you take this example, we are not going hello I and hello I I and am as word by word. We are going character by character, which means that H will be one feature, HE will be one feature, EL will be one feature, LO will be one feature. Again, O space will be one feature, I, and again A and AM will be one feature, like this. Okay, we are taking each and every character into consideration, and then we are converting this text into features. The features of 1, 3, which means that unigram features, trigram, and bigram features all together. Okay, there might be an increase in the features, all right, but this is helping our model to classify it very accurately. Are we using n grams? Yes, we are using n grams, and this is where we are using it. Okay, we have used the TF-ID of vectorizer function, which is readily available in sklearn library, right? We have imported it, and we have used this n-gram range of 1, 3 in internally in it, and we have used analyzer as character. Now, so once we have the vectorizer, pre-processing, data loading, everything is done. So next thing is we have also split our data into train and test. So next part will be building a model, right? So we are using a simple logistic regression, because we know that for most of the classification problems, logistic regression really works better. So let's see how will it work. Okay, I don't say that logistic regression is the only solution for this problem. You can definitely work with other problems, but the one base model which we start with is logistic regression, and this logistic regression has really given us good results. So let's see. Okay, now to have this vectorizer and logistic regression in a single way, okay, we have defined this pre-processing pipeline. You can see this in which we have put vectorizer as first step, and then model building as the second step. Okay, this is your vectorizer and this is your classifier, and then we have fed this model on the train and test data. So we fit the data on the training, right? So the fitting has happened on the train data of X, Y, and we'll do the evaluation on the test part later. We'll see the results, how we got it on the training, and we can go with the next part. Okay, so this, after this slide, yeah, the model prediction. Definitely the languages are more expressed in better ways in words, but here we are not taking any expressions into consideration, right? So all we need to do is a classification, whether it's a language of English or a German or a Spanish or a Chinese, right? So if you don't do character by character, even if you do the analyzer as a word, you'll get some accuracy, but the thing is model is not rightly able to classify it. Why? Because as I told you, most of the letters are common in European languages, the alphabets A, B, C, D, I, AM and all, but the thing which differs is that how they appear, right? So let's say hello, right? The word hello is there. Okay, the hello in English, it will be HELLO, right? So the same H may not appear with E in German, or the same H may not appear with ELLO in other languages, right? So to make the model understand this difference, it's better if you use the character analyzer, so that each and every character, how they appear and with which character it will appear, the model can make better relations instead of using word. But yes, you can definitely try with word, but since I have already tried, I came to know that character is working better than word analyzer. Okay, so now coming back to our model. So since we have trained, we have just trained our model, right? So we have just fit the model, we have done the pre-processing, we have done the vectorization, right? And now we have to do the prediction. So the training will be done on the train set, but the prediction will be done on the set which is kept aside. So what is a set which is kept aside? It's your test or validation set. So here we have test set. So you have used the same pipeline to predict your data. Does it increase the complexity and performance? Yes. So the increasing the complexity is definitely an obvious thing here. Why? Because you are shifting from word to character. But the thing is, here you have limited the n grams to 1, 3. Right? And also to remove or to improve the performance better, you can use some additional parameters like removing the stop words, or using the max df and min df parameters, where you can remove the words which are appearing in almost all the documents. Okay, but since this is just a simple demo to make you understand the important parameters, we have not gone to that level. But yes, definitely it will increase the complexity when you transform it from word analyzer to character analyzer. So to overcome this, you need to do, or you need to utilize some other parameters which we can through which we can definitely reduce the number of features getting generated. Okay, yeah. So the model evaluation, so we have seen the model evaluation here, right? So the model evaluation, if you see on the test which we predicted, comparing to the actual values, so what is being happened here? So we are comparing the actuals with prediction, right? So this is predicted and this is actual. So comparing it with actual and prediction, we got almost 99% accuracy. This is something really worrying about, right? But yes, so if accuracy is something worrying, we have to go with the confusion matrix. We need to see whether we have classified it correctly, if each and every language has classified it correctly. So now we have also gone to this confusion matrix here for the same reason, right? So in this you can see the confusion matrix, but we don't know which language is what, right? So to have the better understanding or better understanding of how this confusion matrix how to deal with this confusion matrix, I have come up with other slide explain the confusion matrix. So this is a confusion matrix which we got, just the representation of this in a better format with languages and everything in the X labels and Y labels. Now we'll understand it. Okay, here 6107 records are being predicted as English, which are actually English. Okay, and sentences which are English have been predicted as German, which are two in number, right? And the sentences which are actually English have been predicted as French as one sentence, and English has been predicted as Spanish, which is of one case. Okay, so there might be some few cases which is really negligible, but again we can improve the model performance by utilizing the additional parameters which we have in model and also which we have in the vectorizer techniques. Okay, and English is almost doing well. And coming to the German, right? So if you see German is predicted as English one case, which we have seen, and German is predicted as German in almost 5,885 cases, which is really good. And German is being confused with Chinese in 5 cases. German is being confused with Spanish in 4 cases, and German is being confused with French in 3 cases. Okay, there is some ambiguity in German, but compared to the ones which are rightly predicted, again these values are really negligible, and these values can really be improved based upon the model tuning. Okay, and coming to the French here, so there is no ambiguity between French, German and English, because we don't have any French sentence predicted as either English or German. We have 0 cases of it, and French is being predicted as French in almost 6,033 cases, okay, which are the right cases. Okay, and French is being predicted as Spanish in 1 case, and French is being predicted as Chinese in 2 cases, which is also a negligible case. And coming to the Spanish, and if you see, the Spanish has really done well compared to other languages. Spanish has predicted as Spanish in 5953 cases, and only there is an ambiguity between Spanish and French in 3 cases, and there is no ambiguity between any other language with Spanish other than French, right? So there is some really a classification, what do you say? The model is really able to classify it very well with Spanish and French. And coming to the Chinese, there is some ambiguity with French and German, and Chinese is being predicted as Chinese in 5952 cases, but there is some ambiguity with French and German, which is a very less than 5. And if you see the misclassification, the misclassifications are very few, which are really negligible, right? So if we can improve our model, or if we can use some more hyperparameter tuning, right, there might be many features and all. So if you can use some more additional parameters in your vectorization technique, maybe you can build a really very good classification model, right? So this is your model performance and how it has evolved. So now we'll go just more beyond. Okay, so how your model like since you have built your model, how do you save your model and how do you load your model back? So once your model is built, right, so we normally tend to save it so that you can just define a function or create an API out of it and you can put it as a service. So we'll just go for 2 minutes brief of how to do that. You can use this pickle file. Okay, you can import this pickle and save your model. Okay, here the model name or the pipeline is which we have used is pipe lr-r13. Okay, so we have saved this file with the name of lrmodel.pckl. pckl is the extension, pickle file extension. And if you want to load this file back, just create a variable and use this open command. Okay, with this you can just load the back which is already saved in your destination folder. Okay, so once you load this, we have just defined a simple function or a method where we can for a given text, okay, which is not related to your train or text test data, but it is something random. Okay, if you give any random text, we'll see how our model will perform. Okay, I've just, what are all the pre-processing things and what are all the models which we have trained, I've just included everything here which you can see. And the text which we input, the raw text which we input, should also go through the same pre-processing steps which we have followed. So I've just done that. And finally we are doing this prediction. If you see the last line, we are doing this prediction. Okay, so now calling this function, we'll see. Okay, I have just put this random sentence, hello, I just built my own language detection model, and which is in English, and also I have using the translation tools available. I have just translated the same sentence in German, and it has rightly predicted, and also for French, Spanish, and Chinese, it has really predicted really well. Okay, so this is a demo which I want to give where we can build our own language detection model. Okay, right? So model, we can say model is overfitting if our training accuracy is very less and test accuracy is way more. Okay, but if you calculate the training accuracy and test accuracy here, they are almost same, and also the confusion matrix is also having a appealing values both with the train and test set. Okay, if you have this appealing values with both training and test, then your model is not overfitting, but the thing is it has learned well. Okay, so I'm using Jupyter Notebook. Okay, and I have built everything using Jupyter Notebook, and the libraries which we have used, we have listed them in the slide. It's a simple scikit-learn package. Okay, where we have all the required libraries which are needed for solving this problem. Okay, so the code for this initial confusion matrix is already there here. Okay, and if you want to plot the same confusion matrix in this visual format, you can use SNS package, okay, which is available in Kaggle. Okay, yes, so since we have clubbed both X and Y, and you can see a step here where I have manually created here. So in this data frame, I have used ilog function to consider all the rows, which is the very first column as X, and the last column which determines whether it's an English or a German, which is a label for us, into Y. Okay, this will be assigned, so which we have done it manually here. So this text parsing is something. So when we say parsing, right, so we are using some syntactic analysis of the data. Okay, if you want to let's say you want to do some spell check of your text. Okay, if you want to do spell check or grammatical check of your text, right, you need to do this text parsing. You need to understand which is the verb form, which is the noun form of your text, so that your model will be able to say that, okay, noun should not appear with so and so form of your grammar, right? So based upon all these rules, so based upon the very rightly trained sentences, that your model will be able to parse your input text and say that if it is grammatically correct, or if it is spell correction is there, or if it is needed further or not. Okay, these all comes under the text parsing. So for simple use cases, for smaller use cases where you can utilize your own CPU server or your computer memory, you can use the you can use your own Jupyter Notebook. Okay, for some of the sophisticated use cases where your computer's memory or server configuration is not really helpful. Okay, so maybe if you want to build a sophisticated neural network or a deep learning network in your system might be having a RAM of 8 or max 16. Maybe nowadays we have laptops of 32 GB even. But if you don't have GPU capability in your laptop, you can't run these deep learning models and sophisticated models in your own Jupyter Notebook. Okay, this Colab is nothing but it's just a replica of your Jupyter Notebook. It just acts same, but you have an additionality of your GPU server accessibility in Google Colab. Okay, so and also Google Colab also runs for minimal problems like what all runs on your system. But in addition to that, it also helps you to run your code in your GPU servers. Okay, the GPU servers will be allocated by Google. It will give you some quota and some time limit, so you can utilize them and train some of the sophisticated deep learning models. Yeah, definitely. So if you see what this prediction has done here, so we have just, so if you know this sklearn package, we have this fit and predict, right? So what is this fit and predict doing? So this predict is predicting me which class it belongs to. Okay, and also if you see the function which I have defined, I have used both predict and predict probability. Okay, this predict will give you the which class it belongs to, whether it belongs to the class of English, whether it belongs to the class of German, right? It might be a class 1 or a class 0, because we normally convert these classes into labels, right? So English will be of a label 0 and German will be of a label 1 and all. So it will predict you which label it belongs to. What about the predict probability? It gives you the probability of being one language or other. Okay, it will give you a vector where the probability of it being English, maybe it will be 0.70, which means 70% probable. And all the other languages or all the other labels will constitute the probability of 0.03 or 0.29, which will make the remaining probability. And when you sum all these probabilities, it will be 1. Okay, so this is how your predict function works. So I have not done conversion to a web service, but have given you the clue how to do it. Okay, this is your clue here. You have to save your model first. So using this pickle library, you can save your model. So once you saved your model, you can load the model back. Okay, you can save this model anywhere in your system. Okay, you can replace this in your server also. Okay, so once you save this model, just have the path remembered. Okay, just note the path where it is saved, and you can access the same model using this function, the open method of this pickle only. Okay, once you open this file, open this pickle file which is stored, it will act as the model which we have trained. Okay, so once you do this, you can just define a simple function here to have all the pre-processing, loading the model, everything in place, and this function can be converted to a web service by creating an API out of it. So some additional things which are needed out of other than what we have discussed is some framework to make this an API. So you can use Python Flask as a framework through which you can convert this function or the method which you are seeing on the screen as a web service API. Okay. So the mismatched data here, there are a lot many things. So if you say the training set error, which means that there is some error in the data set, then we need to deal it ourselves. We need to go through the data. We need to spend some time with the data. Let's say if you are talking about if a German sentence is classified, misclassified, or while preparing the data, if the German German sentence is labeled as English, then model might get confused, right? So these all things we need to take ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves. We can write some simple functions to check if there is any additional character or if there is any mislabel happened. Or what we can do to avoid these kind of problems is like collect the data and process the data separately for each and every language. Once the processing is completed, then only you can combine them so that you don't see any mismatch or mislabeling errors in your training data. Right, so you can, yeah, so as I told you, so you can advance this. So now we have limited with 5 languages. Okay, so but your ultimate goal is not just to classify French, German, Spanish and Chinese, right? You might be having a model, you might be needing a model which will identify all the languages across the world, or at least the most usable languages, or the languages which your tool or your application in your company demands it, right? So you can further advance this by including more and more languages. And what are all the challenges when you include more and more languages? There might be some ambiguity. Let's say you include Japanese here. Okay, there might be some ambiguity between Japanese and Chinese, right? And also in Chinese, you have Chinese simplified and Chinese traditional, right? So there might be some ambiguity happen, which may lead to reducing in your accuracy score. So how do you handle this? You need to try with other models. Maybe the logistic regression might not help in that case. Okay, to rightly classify when you increase your capability, or if you increase your number of languages to be covered in your model, right? So you have to try with other models. You have to go with ensembles, or you have to change the parameters of ngram and the analyzer which we have used in vectorizer, right? So you have to tune these parameters and you can take it forward further. Yes, definitely. So the function or method which we have defined, right? So you can just integrate with Flask. And even if you want to try it with Flask, you need not build a UI out of it. You just import Python Flask and include this function in it, right? So use the service, and you can just use the Postman. You can just install Postman, which will not take more than 5 minutes of time. And in Postman, you can just use it as a web service. You can see how can you make a call, maybe by giving the information or data in JSON format, or however you want, and see how your model is interacting with your text input. So I'm closing the session now. Thanks a lot for attending the session, and keep exploring the Great Learning Academy for more such interactive sessions, right? And enroll for the courses which helps you to have better understanding. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.